Good evening. Welcome to a special edition of the International Grapevine. This is your host, Wallen Ferdley. Tonight on International Grapevine, we want to talk a little bit about mental health issues that affect a lot of us as Americans and people all over the world. We want to take this opportunity to more centralize about anxiety and depression. And what better person to have on our program as a special guest but a wonderful person, a professional lady that's been around a long time and made a great mark for herself as a businesswoman and as a doctor. It gives us a great deal of pleasure to have on our show tonight Dr. Teresa Taylor Williams, who happens to be also a psychiatrist, otherwise than an excellent businesswoman. Please welcome to our program, Dr. Williams.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. We heard wonderful things about you. We wanted to have the opportunity for our audience in the Grapevine to know just exactly who you are and the beautiful things that you've done. So because mental health issues are such a sensitive thing, we wanted to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about that with you because you're more than qualified. We wanted to find out what exactly is anxiety disorder?
Okay, so we can speak about generalized anxiety disorder. Generalized anxiety disorder is anxiety that touches every part of your life. And so in those cases, it's very hard to find the trigger. And, as clinicians, we're always looking for what is the precipitating event, what is going on in your life that may have brought you to this point where you're feeling anxiety. Maybe it was the loss of a loved one. It was the loss of a job, loss of home, fire damage, illness. Really, any of those life-changing events, your finances, can produce anxiety. And that's a normal reaction because a change of anything in our lives that gives us a sense of normalcy and security, and then when it's removed, we become anxious. But when we have generalized anxiety disorder, it is just a feeling that's with us all the time. And we really can't pinpoint a precipitating event or a trigger. And so for people who are suffering with anxiety every single day, even when you might ask them, is anything going on in your life that you can identify or pinpoint to say that this is making me feel anxious, they can't really do it. And so generalized anxiety disorder affects millions of people. And certainly right now, everybody has some kind of anxiety going on in their lives due to COVID-19.
I couldn't agree with you more because of COVID-19. There's a ton load of anxiety all over the world, and it's a big challenges for everyone because of this coronavirus and all the things that surrounding your life in a moment like this. The pros, the cons, you have family members getting sick, your own kids, and sometimes school problem. There's so much going on now because of the coronavirus, and all it does is accelerate and make a bigger challenges in terms of what's going on with anxiety, no question about that. And the whole world is on pins and needles because of these type of issues. How common is the anxiety situation in America in general?
Anxiety is very common. And we want to distinguish between, like I said, people who suffer from anxiety every single day of their lives and, are taking and hopefully seeing a therapist, a clinician. And if the need is there for a form of medicinal treatment, that they're also consulting a psychiatrist and taking a medication to help them. Some of us our brains are wired differently. And so we react differently. Some of us might get too much of might not get enough of what I call happy juice. Those endomorphins, those feel good juices that are in our head. And so how I explain it to my classes is that every day, imagine you get a cup of happy juice. neopinephrine and endomorphins that are there and making us feel good. But you need more than that glass, or something's going on, a death, a shocking event. Well, that gets used up. The more we are anxious and depressed, the quicker we use it. So by the end of the day, for example, you've used up your cup. Now what happens? Your mood starts to sink. And so when people need or take antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication, it replaces the loss of that happy juice and it balances them out. Anxiety now, I think every single person, a young person, child, age does not matter, is suffering from some form of anxiety in some way because we don't like uncertainty. We want to know what's happening today, what's happening tomorrow. We like our regularity, we like our routine. But this COVID situation and this pandemic has literally turned our lives upside down. In addition, it has taken away the things that would normally help people reduce their anxiety, like going to the gym, like meeting with friends and sitting around and talking, going over each other's homes, being with family. Any activity that brings your anxiety down has literally been taken away. Going to a movie, walking in the mall. And so some of these things are available to us, but the wealth of anxiety that builds up just to say, can I get up enough courage to go to the mall or to have a meal inside is also anxiety producing. So we really are in a situation where anxiety is prevalent, and we certainly need to be having a conversation about it like tonight.
That's one of the reasons for this program, for those who are having those type of anxiety or issues facing them. Again, because of the coronavirus, because of our surrounding, could be job situations, as you mentioned, could be any type of thing that could be causing you anxiety. And it's important to have a program of this magnitude with a good doctor who can give you some advice, and you might reach out to the doctor for further help. Is anxiety treatable, Doc?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are holistic measures of treating anxiety. I know there is a vitamin regimen that can address anxiety. There are prescription medications that can treat anxiety, but we can also treat our anxiety by getting moving, by getting active, by going out the door and putting our sneakers on and using exercise and the fresh air and allowing the environment to just make us feel good again. And so, there are so many ways, and you can have a combination of ways to treat anxiety, but it's absolutely a treatable condition. No one should be suffering and not seeking help.
So I would say some type of form of exercise is good if your anxiety is not super advanced, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But if you suffer from anxiety, I would say, 6 out of 8 hours of the day, if it comes on and if it's disrupting your normal activities, here's some red flags. Red flags are you just get worried and you're worrying and it's becoming excessive and it's seeping into every area of your life. So that I tell my students, it's like having a stop sign in front of your face like this. Everything you look at has that anxiety attached to it. And so there are different levels of anxiety. But if you can treat the anxiety that you have just by getting moving and maybe talking to friends and doing some enjoyable, safe activity now, that's not a really serious level of anxiety. But if that anxiety is preventing you from sleeping, it's affecting your diet, it's affecting your recreational time, that you don't feel like talking to friends or going on a Zoom call and being part of an activity, if it's affecting your relationships and just your general health, that you just can't feel like yourself, you really need to consult a medical professional that can work with you and help you feel good again. And I do want to say this, you know, many, many years ago, there was a stigma, and we still have a little bit of it, a stigma attached to using the word mental health, mental issue, anxiety, medication. And it made you feel like, oh no, I can't let anyone know that I have that. But please take the stigma off, get help, and everyone can feel better if they just start to admit to themselves that they don't care about a stigma. That's not important. Feeling good is more important.
I like the fact that you talk about that stigma. I think it's extremely important for those who not only experiencing anxiety, but the shyness to open up to whether your mom, your dad, or calling your doctor for help. The stigma, don't worry about it. Worry about your health. Try to get the proper help from a doctor, from a psychologist, who can really truly help you and head you in the right direction over a period of time. So sticking into this stigma, yes, it's worrisome, but I wouldn't put it above my head. Getting help is the most important thing, as the doctor have mentioned. How widespread would you say anxiety is in America? Is it something very widespread?
I think it's really widespread, and I think that it starts at a very young age. I think that also because of our situation, and I keep coming back to the effects of the pandemic, you think about, let's talk about our babies, okay? Our little ones who don't quite understand what's happening. They were either looking forward to starting school or being in nursery school or kindergarten or the lower grades in elementary school. They can comprehend that something's going on, but because of the situation between hybrid learning and schools closing abruptly, and if you think back to about 8 or 9 months now, where they were sitting at their desk one day, just like I was standing in my classroom. I'm a professor of psychology for City University, and I'm talking to my students, and they're all of a sudden telling me things about schools closing. I had no notice, and I'm talking to young adult students. But think about those little ones who all of a sudden, next day, you don't see a teacher anymore. You're not with your friends anymore. And you're home, your parents are home. There's emotions going on at a high level. There's confusion. Our little ones are just swirling around and not understanding what's happening. Think about our adolescents, our middle school and high school students. They thrive right now. Teenagers thrive over being with their peers and being on their teams and going to their art classes and music and being creative. They miss graduations. Some of them were looking forward to going off to college for the first year. And so if you think about just our children and the unknown and the uncertainty, that's brought anxiety on. Because like I said, what's normal and what's our regularity? So, and don't even start talking about like adults, losing their job, not knowing what's going to happen, depending upon unemployment gets pulled away or it ends. Now we're waiting for stimulus checks and hoping that we're going to get those. So it's a very, very desperate time for people concerning their mental health. And I think that we need to have a great level of concern. And that level of concern will also go into how, when things come back, what's going to be the effects of what has happened to us mentally. And so I think there's going to be an even greater need to be attentive to the mental health of everyone as we transition back into our normal lives and what that will look like.
If and how long it will take us to transition back into our life. When you talk about the youngsters, it gives me a scary feeling. They're so young, so innocent, and their life is turned totally upside down. One day they're going to school, playing, learning. All of a sudden that's cut off. They don't see their friends. They don't see the teachers. It's a whole different thing. And it's hard for them to adjust and to understand as a youngster with a free living, carefree everything has changed, as you mentioned, and it's frightening, very
Yeah.
frightening. Sometimes unemployment at home, sometimes food issues are not there. And
Yes.
where do we go from here with these type of situation? It can affect a young child, as you mentioned, who might eventually down the road, if things don't change fast, might need some type of help down the road.
Absolutely. And, our little ones are going to need a lot of social emotional help. I work with many school districts as a specialist for social emotional learning. And, being able to integrate SEL into every activity, every subject. But, also our young people who are in college, because everyone, and in high school, one of the assumptions that was made, and I know there's been great efforts to supply every child, no matter what age, with an iPad, with a laptop. But I'm not quite sure that that has been able to reach every child in every home. But I give you an example of something that I am facing with my college students, writing to me and in an email and telling me that, their parents lost their job. And so they had to turn the cable off because that was not a necessity. So they had no Wi-Fi. And if you think about our college students who are coming from homes where they might be challenged economically, they depended upon their college libraries to do the work. There were computers there, there's Wi-Fi there. I also am concerned about our college students because if you think about dysfunctional homes, homes where children are abused, homes where children are trying to escape, they thrive on the college campus because they finally got away from their homes and they got to a place where they could be safe. One article that I did read was about the statistics concerning child abuse. And it was very upsetting to me because the first part of the article discussed the low rates of child abuse or domestic violence reporting. And you say, great, domestic violence is down, child abuse is down in homes. But as the article progressed, it started bringing up the reasons. And one of the reasons was that when children are abused at home, your school staff sees it. Their teacher can see that something's going on. They can look at their faces. But without that eye to eye, without that daily interaction, yes, the percentages are going down on reporting abuse because we can't see it. You're not there in the classroom with us. You're at home. And some of our babies are suffering through so much because they're not going to school every day. The parent who is an abusive parent, they're having a free for all now because no one's watching them. No one's asking about a bruise. And so I worry about these babies, and I call these children, all of them babies, because they're not adults. And whether they're in high school or they're in nursery, they need our care. And right now we can't give it. I miss the interaction with my college students. And I miss being able to be there for them coming and asking me, can I talk to you after class? Can I share something with you? And that really, really is a big loss for our children, no matter what age.
There's no question about it. And that after class meeting with you and them under those circumstances, it's a rescue
Yes.
matter for them. A
Yeah.
rescue matter that right now they don't have because there's not that physical contact in the classroom that you have with them. And they are exposed to all these type of things happening at home because your parents might have problems and it comes right back down to them. And that level of anxiety that they are experiencing and
Yeah.
also their parents, it has to be like a time bomb, no matter how you look at it, no question
Yeah.
about it. And it's also very, very scary because a lot of people are not conscious and are not aware of these type of things. And it get lost by the wayside and the kid situation get terrible worse over a period of time.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
extremely scary. As we get back on International Grapevine, we're going to continue talking to Dr. Teresa Williams, who is my special guest, and I've shared some very private and important moments about anxiety in the classroom with the students, whether it be college, high school, or young kids. We'll be right back and the international grapevine as we continue talking about anxiety issues and depression. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to the entire audience of the International Grapevine. This is your host, Wallingford Lee. In behalf of the family of the International Grapevine, we want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a happy and prosperous New Year. In behalf of the family of the International Grapevine. And we're back here on the International Grapevine with my special guest, Dr. Teresa Taylor Williams has been so kind to visit us here in the Grapevine to talk a little bit about anxiety and depression and the issues that all of us are facing today, not only in New York, but all over America. The COVID and the sickness and the issues them with schools, the anxiety for those who doesn't have a job, who doesn't know where the next penny is coming from, your rent payment or your mortgage payment or your food. Very sensitive things. And we're thankful to have doctors like Dr. Williams who can come to the rescue if you are smart enough to reach out to her in this moment. These type of things are extremely, extremely important. And as we move forward, you're going to have the opportunity watching this program to learn so much about anxiety and depression or understand some of the feelings that you're feeling sometimes that you yourself are not capable to express it because of the confusion, because of the pressure, and because of all the things that you're living through and what you're going through right now. But we hope a little bit of this program will incite you as to, some of the warning signs. Doctors, we continue talking about depression. Anxiety. Can anxiety lead to depression down the road?
When we have an issue going on, and when an issue is not solved, think about a problem that you might have had, and you just thought that it was never going to get better. Things were never going to change. Then we start to feel hopeless, and that hopelessness can grow into depression. And then we're looking at life and saying, then what's the point? Why get up today? Why get dressed today? Why go outside? Why talk to friends? So anxiety can definitely lead to depression because if it's not treated, we're just going to get more and more frustrated with what's happening with us. And remember, when we don't know what's going on, it raises our level of anxiety and it just feeds into our fears and our worries. And then you start to feel like there's no help for me. But let me say this at this time, which is a good time to say it. There are so many organizations and resources for no matter what age it is, to reach out for help. I always say to people, well, I don't want to come to you and sit and go and admit that something's wrong with me or use the word crazy. Well, you don't have to come to me. A good friend is a good ear. Your clergy is a good ear. A family member is a good ear. Sometimes people come to therapists because they have no one else who will listen to them. No one else who will listen to what's going on in their lives without saying, well, just get over it. Another point I want to make also is that, how anxiety is perceived is definitely affected by our racial makeup, our ethnicity. If you think about all of the races, in this world, the African American, the Caribbean American, the Hispanic Americans, the Asian Americans are the least likely to seek mental health care. And that's unfortunate because it goes back to what we were talking about before about stigmas. We still have stigmas, especially in our communities, in the Latino and the Black communities. We still think that there's something wrong to admit that, we need some help. We need some mental health assistance. And what I say to my students who want to be future psychologists and therapists is that you must think about the entirety of your body. And I give this example. I said, if class ended and you unfortunately tripped and fell down the stairs and blood was gushing out of your knee, and I came by and I said, here's a little Band-Aid I found in my pocketbook. Put that on your knee. Would that stop the blood from gushing out? No, you would take yourself to a hospital or call 911. So how come we don't treat things that are going on above the neck, things that are going on in here, as we treat the rest of our body? And I encourage them to remember that your mental health is just as important as your physical health. We can stop that bleeding. You can go get stitches, and I can stop the bleeding that's happening up here with your help and with talk therapy and possibly medication and possibly meditation, holistic methods. But they're just as well, we can treat here as we can treat a broken knee that's bleeding out.
Very interesting. One of the things that we talked about, you mentioned a certain amount of groups, and rightfully so, that sometimes don't seek the proper help because of stigma. Is it stigma or embarrassment because of a foreign background, or shyness, or is it just strictly stigma?
I think it's a combination of both. I think also that we still need a lot of education in our communities, in the Latino and Black communities especially. You can't fault people for not using a resource that they may not know exactly what's going to happen. So many of my clients who are either Latina or African American will say, well, I didn't know it was going to go like this. And I said, well, what do you think was going to happen when you came to me? So I don't know. I thought you were going to get all into my business and try to find out my deepest, darkest secrets. I'm not there for that. We're here to listen. If you find a good therapist and you enjoy talking with them, first it's about listening. First it's about matching. It's about getting a good match. Because if you were going to a hair salon and you didn't like how the barber cut your hair, you're not going back again. You'll look for another one. Therapist is the same way. We have to have a connection. Second, we have to establish trust. Before you will share anything with me, you have to trust me. I do an exercise in my professional development workshops for educators, administrators, because they will ask me to give workshops on how we can get our students to talk to their teachers. Because teachers are always saying, the students won't open up to them. So I asked teachers to take out an index card and write down your deepest, darkest secret, something you have never told anyone. And after they did that, I said, okay, now bring it up here. I'm going to read it out. What? I don't want to do that. Oh, you don't want to share your deepest, darkest secret with me because we just met? Because you don't know me? Well, that's how your students feel. Why do you assume that your students want you to share things with them when there's no trust established? And so, we in our communities have to know more about the mental health care process. Also, we need more facilities, good facilities in our communities that allow the community to come in and educate them on mental health, on mental illness. Yes, we have them, but for me, I don't think we have enough. And I don't think they're welcoming enough so that people are sort of hands off. They feel very leery about going in and not knowing exactly what's going to happen.
It's very interesting what you say, because in many cases, as a therapist, sometimes it depends on the patient, how much they open up and how long it takes them to open up in order for you to be able to know them and know what bothers them and to treat them. It might take 2 visits, it could take 5. It all depends on that particular person, the amount of problem they have, the shyness, the secretive belief, and when are they ready to open up to you. And once they open up to you, the flow of how much they tell you before
Yeah,
you're able to give them the proper help that they need.
exactly.
And it's a process like anything else,
It's a process. I cannot put a time stamp on it. I can't tell you if it's going to happen in 6 months or 6 visits. And I also say to my patients, as honest as you will be with me is how much I can help you. I can't do the job if you don't share with me, but I also will not rush you. I follow you. I don't pull you along with me.
because
And
you've been prudent.
yeah, so, I say to them, you're driving this ship. You will decide where we'll go. And I find that I work with a lot of emerging adults. I love working with my young people, age about 13 up until about 33, 34, because they're open. They're like open books. And once we establish a good relationship and they learn to trust me, we have more of a friendly conversation. And with my emerging adults, with any of my clients, I am always on call. So I tell, especially my teenagers, you can text me, you can call me, I'm going to pick up anytime, because for some of them, I am their lifeline. And I have to recognize that this is the job that I've signed up for. I also tell that to my psych students. Know what this job entails if you're going to do a good job. We're not MDs, we're not surgeons, but we're on call just like any other doctor. And if
And you have to be committed.
and we have to be committed. I had a situation a couple of years ago with someone that called me, and I looked at my phone and I said, I'm so busy right now, I'll call them back. Thank goodness I picked that phone up, because I picked that phone up, I saved them from committing suicide. This is a serious business, and we're dealing with very, very serious issues that people are suffering through. You don't know if that one phone call, you're the lifeline that night, and especially in this environment, people call you, a friend may call you 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock. Please pick up the phone. Tell them off later. Say, why'd you call me 2 o'clock in the morning? Tell me about a movie. I'd rather be wrong about the phone call than not have to pick it up.
Well, one of the key components is the type of field that you're into. The field that you're into, it's very, very important, because you're dealing with people from all walk of life, people with so many different types of problems. Not everyone comes to the same conclusion. And it's highly imperative to have someone with your knowledge, your background, and your expertise to deal with these type of problems and issues who are extremely sensitive, and some of them are extremely dangerous also.
Yeah.
So your career path and the line of work that you're into is fundamental, extremely important. No question about it, doctor. No
And I
question about
enjoy
it.
it. I enjoy it. People say, Teresa, you're trying to save the world. Okay, you know what? If I could, I would. But I think that I don't like to see anyone suffering mentally. I don't like to see our children suffering. And if I can, through what I'm providing, help whoever comes to me, then I feel like I'm doing a good job. But we're never really doing enough. It's a line of work that can be very frustrating, but it can also be very rewarding when you get phone calls or text messages, especially from my young people or any of my clients, to say, I just want to tell you that you really helped me through a rough time. And I'm so happy to be in this field.
But frustrated if you lose them,
Yes.
and happy if you can dig them out of that problem that they're having. So it has a reward, but it also has a certain amount of sadness that the client doesn't see, because in reality you care as a human being, and you bring a lot to the table. Doctors, we continue talking about all of that things. Can you describe to us just exactly what is depression?
Depression is a change in mood, but it's a prolonged change in mood. So let me explain. All of us have been depressed at one time or another. And certainly we can point out for adults, things that have depressed us. Breakup of a relationship, losing your first girlfriend or boyfriend. You're sad for a couple of days. You don't feel like eating, appetite changes. As we get older, a marriage breaks up, loss of a family member can put us into a depression. And like I said before, anything that affects our stability, our economics, our housing, our family structure, illness can purge us into depression. Now, there are normal periods of depression when we can identify what the trigger is. You lost a loved one and it was an unexpected death. You have to go through the burial and the funeral, whatever you ascribe to according to your religion. You're going to feel really, really down and really, really sad. Okay, that could last weeks. Sometimes people grieve for months. But eventually that curve changes. You go down and then you start to come back up. When you are down and then you're sinking deeper and deeper, and you can't pull yourself back up, even though circumstances are getting better. The grieving has started to heal. Depression comes on because of many things, but depression that we can identify a precipitating incident, I still put in the normal category. Now, when you are depressed and you can't identify why you're depressed, then you need to really investigate this further with a clinician, because you could be clinically depressed. Clinical depression is also related to our brain chemistry, and you may need to take a medication in order to supplement, in order to have your mood altered and to lift you a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, our brain chemistries are different for every single person. So maybe you need a little bit more than the other person of that little happy juice I was talking about. But clinical depression is serious. Clinical depression is you can't get out of bed. You can't get out of bed for a week. You can't get out of bed for 2 weeks. You can't show up to your job. You can't take care of your children. You can't go to work. You don't bathe. You don't take care of your hygiene. You're not eating. That's clinical depression. And that truly needs the attention of a medical professional.
I guess that the clinical depression is where you really truly need clinical involvement.
Yes.
And the doctor, and it depends on how deep it is and how long it will take before you kind of find some type of cure or slow it down, wouldn't you say?
Yes, and also let me say this, the first line of defense, the first step is to go and get a good physical with your general practitioner, because a certain illnesses can present in a way that it's affecting your mood. You can have a thyroid issue. You can have a blood sugar issue. And these things can also affect your mood. So you want to get a good exam and blood tests with your general doctor. If the results come back that you are perfectly fine physically, the next step is to get a referral to go to a psychologist or psychiatrist. The psychiatrist will be someone who will work with you with a medicinal solutions, and the psychologist or the therapist or the psychotherapist will provide the talk therapy. So it really is a joint effort amongst many professionals, medical professionals.
Can children inherit depression from their parents?
I like to say depression is catching. Okay, when you say inherit depression, our brain chemistry, like I said, we are all wired differently. And so there are some mental health illnesses that we can trace to inheriting in the genes, genetics. But observable depression is when you start to pick up the actions and the body language of your parent. And so if a child is living with a parent that's depressed, that never smiles, that hunches over, that is always tired or laying down, a small child then can start to pick up that behavior also. And so we can call it catching depression from their parent. So absolutely, yes.
Are women more likely to get depression more than men?
There's a lot of research on that topic, but let me explain it this way. Women can be more prone to changes in behavior just due to their menstrual cycles, to their biology. And when we go into those changes that are brought on by, for example, our menstrual cycle, it changes our mood. We can become depressed. We can become more anxious during that 7 to 10 day period. And men, they don't really have the changes in their hormones the way women do. So if you look at it that way, we can say, yes, women can be more prone to getting depressed and to getting anxious if we look at it within the normal monthly cycle that they have to go through that is mood altering.
Well, Doctor, let me say in behalf of the family of Grapevine, I want to take this opportunity to tell you thank you so much for being our special guest. We have run out a little bit out of time, but I would like to hold you back and ask if you would be kind enough to come back on our program, because we cover so many different things, and this is important to the community. You have touched on so many things that I thought was extremely important. I don't have words to thank you for being my special guest and for accepting our invitation at Grapevine.
Well, I am happy to come back. That's the first thing, because I love talking about this, and there are so many other things to talk about related to this. And I think what you're doing is such a great service to the communities that you serve. And I think it's a wonderful thing. And it's been my pleasure to be here with you this evening. And I look forward to getting a phone call again saying, would you come on? So thank you so much.
And you certainly will get that phone call.
Okay.
And again, this is Wallingford Lee saying that we thank Dr. Teresa Williams so much for all her important information. She put a lot of great information out here where you can get a lot of help. On behalf of the Grapevine, family Grapevine, we want to thank her so much for being our special guest. And we hope to see her back on the Grapevine real soon. And this is Wallingford Lee saying good night. And thank you for watching our program.